Hello, everybody, and welcome into today's episode of Around the Slice. I'm, of course, here on this Friday to preview for the staple Bills game preview show. This one in particular will be Bills at Jets, which is this Monday night. So Monday, October 14th at 8:15 p.m. on ESPN in East Rutherford, New Jersey. So it's a road game for the Bills, but at least it's not like some half country or cross country road trip or something. But it still is a true road game nonetheless. So after that, without further ado, let's just get into my keys for the game, player of the game predictions, all the usual stuff we do here on Around the Slice. So without further ado, here are my three keys for the Bills offense. Again, like always, not in order of importance or priority, but I'll explain them as I go. My first key for the Bills offense in this game in the Jets at the New York Jets is the quick passing game needs to shine. Emphasize quick passes. Josh Allen needs to get the ball out of his hands very quickly and very efficiently. I had the whole world Bills Mafia fan base did, but me in particular, for the purposes of this podcast, for the purposes of Around the Slice, I had many criticisms of Joe Brady last week, as you know, and honestly the last couple weeks, especially last week. But one of my biggest criticisms looking back on it as well is he didn't have any hot routes for Josh Allen. He didn't put any hot routes and make life easy on his QB. If you don't know what hot routes are, it's basically a way for the quarterback just to get the ball out of his hands quickly. Ball snapped, boom, screen. Ball snap, boom, quick slant. Hot routes are routes where the ball can get out of where the quarterback can get the ball out of his hands quickly and efficiently. And that needs to be emphasized in this game. You can't be holding on to the ball forever with Will McDonald on the edge, who has 7 sacks this year, I believe, in 5 games. Terror of a start. Quinn Williams up the middle, who for his size is a very high-end athlete and a huge athletic profile at just big defensive tackle. So you can't be holding on to the ball quickly. And this offensive line has shown the past couple weeks and lost to the Ravens and lost to the Texans respectively that if Josh holds on to the ball for way too long or even a millisecond too long, this offensive line can't hold up. So Joe Brady needs to put hot routes in the playbook for these guys. That means Josh Allen needs to get the ball quickly and efficiently. I can't emphasize this enough. Hot routes need to be a big priority for this game. Design easy stuff for Josh Allen. Make Josh Allen feel comfortable again. Make Josh Allen feel comfortable on the run and in the pocket, respectively, again. And usually, you guys know this, I'm a huge proponent of pre-snap motion, pre-snap play design, window dressing, all that fun, cute stuff before the play. For this game, I'm not, though. I just think Joe Brady needs to get back to basics. Don't overcomplicate things. Yes, as I just said, I'm a huge proponent of pre-snap motion and all that cute stuff and fun stuff before the ball is snapped, but not this game, especially with all the injuries you have, which we'll get to in a minute. Later on, actually, for the 5 inactive players. Work quickly and efficiently. We don't need all this pre-snap motion. We don't need to risk getting illegal shift penalties, which have been way up in the NFL statistically and just by watching with your own eyeballs, including myself. So, Joe Brady needs to find hot routes to get Josh Allen the ball out quickly and efficiently. The quick passing game, it was lovely the first 3 weeks of the season. And then last 2 weeks, it was dreadful. There was no quick passing game. And this is kind of an extension of that. But Josh Allen, no big play hunting. Like the last 3 weeks, he was okay with playing boring, if you will. He was okay with taking what was there. And in the last 2 weeks, he was big play hunting. He got bored with the short stuff. He got bored with the short to intermediate part of the field. You need to return to basics. So as much as I love pre-snap motion and, trying to get the defense on their heels and all that fun and cute stuff back there, just Joe Brady and Josh Allen, the offense as a whole, needs to get back to basics. And by the way, second key, part of getting back to basics is receivers need to get open. Like a huge thing last year, whether it was Gabe Davis, Stephon Diggs, they couldn't separate downfield. I feel like the defensive backs were on those guys' hip respectively every single game. damn near every single play. And first 3 weeks, players were getting separation. They were finding open spots in the zone and just sit, catch, and work with big yards after catch, big run after catch, whatever you want to call it. But unfortunately, the last 2 weeks, especially last week against the Texans, this reared its ugly head once again. Keon Coleman couldn't get separation whatsoever. Dalton Kincaid, he's been the most disappointing player easily for the first 5 weeks. Couldn't get any separation. Also, can we please stop throwing to Matt Collins and MVS? Like, can we just stop? And can we find more creative ways to get Curtis Samuel the ball? I don't know, but I'm looking for Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid specifically to get separation. I mean, it was so bad last week that the Texans defensive backs might as well have been running the route for the Bills. Like, that's how bad it was. They were on their hip every single play. And Josh Allen was terrible, but if his receiver can't get open, what's he supposed to do? He's going to force the ball into tight windows. And luckily, he didn't throw any receptions last week, although he threw 2 what should have been Texans interceptions easily, but technically it was an interception. So he still has 8 passing touchdowns and 3 rushing. So 11 total touchdowns and 0 interceptions this year. That's awesome, but your receivers need to get open, whether it's on the sideline, short field, intermediate field. Me, personally, this goes hand in hand with the quick passing game. I want them to get open in the short to intermediate levels of the field so Josh Allen can utilize those hot routes that Joe Brady hopefully implements for him to the best of his ability. Snap the ball. Oh, there's Keon Coleman sitting in the zone wide open. Boom. Snap the ball. There's Dalton Kincaid sitting in the intermediate level of the field. Boom. I'm not saying you have to separate downfield. Like, separating isn't just separating downfield. Separating is also separating near the line of scrimmage and separating in the intermediate part of the field. And the Bills very, very, very heavily struggled with that last week. So I would love for them to separate specifically in the short, more specifically intermediate part of the field. In my third and final last key, the Bills offense here is utilize Josh Allen's legs and rushing and elite rushing ability in this game, especially with, unfortunately, James Cook not likely to play. If you haven't heard, he suffered a turf toe injury, and that's likely at the minimum a 2 to 3 week absence, if not more. So we probably won't see him for another 2 weeks at the very least. So I think Josh Allen, you need to get back to utilizing his legs in a big way, because you would think coming into this game, the Jets' run defense is like bottom 10 in the entire league. And their pass defense is like top 10 in the entire league. So the key to victory here, you would think, was running the ball with James Cook and pounding it down their throat, if you will. Well, you can't do that anymore without James Cook. The group of running backs will be Ty Johnson, Ray Davis. I like Ray Davis, although I don't think he's been utilized enough. I like Ty Johnson as an RB2/3 in this league. Huge special teams contributor, but he's like nowhere near a bell cow and a workhorse. And then Frank Gore Jr. will most likely be elevated from the practice squad. I think each of them will get like 8 to 10 carries. I don't think any of them will surpass 10, maybe 11 at the most. It'll be like a 3-way split, if you will, and none of them are particularly great. So I think because of that, they're not good against the run. You need to utilize your QB, your goal line back, if you will, Josh Allen. Utilize his legs. I feel like that's something they've gotten away from the last couple weeks. And I'm not talking about like it's snap, play action, like it's a regular pass play. Like it's not a hot route. It's just a regular deep pass play. And, it's snapped and Josh Allen first read, second read, third read isn't there. And then he scrambles and takes off for 10 to 15 yards. I mean actual design plays, QB draws, QB runs, QB end arounds. Anything to get Josh Allen on the move. So I don't mean scrambles. I mean actual implemented QB runs by Joe Brady. So those are my 3 keys for offense. You can let me know what you agree or disagree with if you have more. Keys. Oops, sorry, I lost it for a minute. Three keys for the Bills defense in this game. Do not let this be the game where Breece Hall bounces back in a big way. Like Breece Hall, objectively, the last 2 weeks, he's been terrible. Like, I know. I have him in multiple fantasy leagues, so he's been terrible the last 2 weeks. Like, there's no way around it. He's been very terrible. He had 5 yards a week 2 weeks ago, and then 23 yards last week against the Vikings in London. I've said before that the Bills' run defense is, let's just be blunt about it, it's garbage. and I still think it is. They've been gashed by Devon Achane, Derrick Henry, James Conner to an extent, Travis Etienne to an extent. Although that was more garbage time yards and a huge blowout, but you get the point. This run defense is garbage, in my opinion. It's easily bottom 10, if not bottom 5 in the league. And do not let this be the game where Breece Hall bounces back. Don't let Breece Hall go from 5 yards and 23 rushing yards, respectively, in 2 consecutive games for the Jets, all of a sudden to 100 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Like, don't let that happen. Don't let this be the game where Breece Hall gets back on track. And without Ed Oliver now, who also I would be shocked to see him play, like Daquan Jones and Dwayne Carter need to be on their game, like their fullest potential. Dwayne Carter's fullest potential needs to be realized in this game, because don't let Breece Hall bounce back. Like, don't let this be the game where Breece Hall all of a sudden acts like a superstar again. So that's just my point I want to hit home here. And then second key for the Bills. Yes, second key for the Bills defense. Do not give Aaron Rodgers a clean pocket. This whole week I've kind of been clowning the Jets on the whole head coach situation, the Nathaniel Hackett play calling thing, and Aaron Rodgers is immobile. He can't throw on the run anymore. But I will give him credit this. If you give him a clean pocket, and if he has time to throw, that back shoulder ball is still one of the best I've ever seen. That back shoulder ball is still like deadly. As a pure passer, that's not the problem with Aaron Rodgers. As a pure passer with those back shoulder fades, Aaron Rodgers is still very, very good as a pure thrower of the football. But don't let him have a clean pocket. Let me lay out their offensive line for you guys, and I'll let you know what I like about it, what I don't like about it in terms of matchups. Left tackle Tyron Smith. Okay, 34 years old. He's always hurt. And I don't know where his level of play is anymore. Okay, you think that could be a matchup you take advantage of. Left guard, John Simpson. They gave big money to pry him away from the Ravens, if you will, but I think he's been somewhat disappointing. Center Joe Tippmann, second year out of Wisconsin. He's by far the best offensive lineman, in my opinion. I don't think you're going to have much success against him, if any at all. Right guard, Elijah Vera Tucker. This is fourth year in the league. First 3 years in the league, and significant injury, torn ACL, torn Achilles again, every single year. But when he's in there, he's damn good. So probably not much wins there. And then right tackle, it would be Morgan Moses, but he's obviously injured for at least the next 1 or 2 weeks. So we got Olu Fashanu, rookie out of Penn State, who his whole Penn State career was a career left tackle in college, but now he's moved over to right tackle. It's been mixed results. So this interior, like these defensive tackles against this middle three for the Jets of John Simpson, Joe Tippmann, and Elijah Vera Tucker. I'm a fan of that middle three. So the defensive tackles with Dwayne Carter and Daquan Jones and Zion Logue and whoever's elevated from the practice squad between Elianku and Branson Dean, I'm not expecting many one-on-one victories. But where you can gets a lot of wins is with this tackle duo of Tyron Smith at left tackle and Olu Fashanu at right tackle. So your pure edge rushers need to be on their game, whether it's the 2 starters in Greg Rousseau, which Greg Rousseau needs to have a monster game, and then AJ Epineza, who to some extent I've been disappointed with AJ Epineza as splitting the starter ups of Von Miller now becoming a full-time starter, with Von Miller obviously suspended for the next 3 games. He served that 1 game out of the 4, so next 3 games, respectively. And they're rotational guys like Javon Solomon, DeJuan Smoot, Casey Tuhill. Those guys need to be on their game as well. Greg Rousseau, I'm just going to come out and say it. He's disappointed me. He had 3 sacks week 1, and then he's disappeared since. Like, I've always said, Greg Rousseau is an elite run stuffer, elite run defender off the edge. Not many guys can do that off the edge. But, like, is he really a difference maker? Is he really a game changer off the edge in terms of getting penetration, getting sacks? And, like, him and AJ Epineza get a bunch of QB pressures. Like, Greg Rousseau had 3 QB hits last week. Like, he hit CJ Stroud 3 times, but the problem is he lets the opposing QB escape. And I think sacks are more important than QB pressures. Everyone wants to point to QB pressures about getting after the quarterback, but you know what's also important? Bringing them to the ground. So, like, once you have your hands on them, bring them to the ground. Don't let them escape like you did with CJ Stroud against the Houston Texans multiple times last week. So Greg Rousseau needs to have a monster game. AJ Epineza needs to have a monster game. And then sprinkle in Casey Tuhill, Javon Solomon, and Dewan Smoot, which I'm not that thrilled about that depth. So I think all the weight goes on Greg Rousseau and AJ Epinez's shoulders. So that middle three, just to recap, that middle three, you're not going to get much penetration and pressure on. But those two outside tackles with Tyron Smith and Olu Fashanu, respectively, Greg Rousseau and AJ Epinesa, respectively, you're going to get, hopefully, a ton of pressure off the edge from them as pure edge rushers. And then this is pretty straightforward. No busts in coverage. Like, we don't need, like, like last week, we don't need Nico Collins streaking down the middle of our defense and the safeties don't know what's going on. We have corners throwing up their hands in midair, expecting safety help over the top. Like, we don't need that again. Like, don't let Garrett Wilson do that to you. He had 23 targets last week in London, came down with 13 catches. We don't need any busting coverage. Like, it's rare for the Bills to have busting coverage because the Sean McDermott defense of the last handful of years, really since he took over, but especially over the last 3 or 4 years, specifically, we haven't had many busts in coverage. Like, it's good that we're getting Taylor Rapp. Yeah, and I've said this before. It's not that I'm in love with Taylor Rapp and he's some great player. He's an adequate starter. He's a good enough starter, I guess. Low-level starter, but good enough, adequate starter. It's not that he's great, but it's the other guys are just really bad. Like, Cole Bishop was terrible last week. Cam Lewis, his natural position at this point is nickel corner. He has kind of some rough reps at safety. He misses way too many tackles for my liking. So just please, no busting coverage. Just if you need safety to help over the top, and like, get it. And if you need to double cover someone, talking about Garrett Wilson, then utilize that. But please, no safety bust like we had next week. Nico Collins walking in the end zone. I mean, he could have jogged. That busting coverage was so bad. My players are the game predictions for this game against the Jets Monday night in East Rutherford. On offense, like, this is more on offense. I don't have much confidence in Dalton Kincaid right now. I definitely don't have much confidence at all in the receivers right now, whether it's Matt Collins, MVS. I want to see more of them. Curtis Samuel's about to total dud. Khalil Shakir, I'll be surprised if he plays. So I'm going to go with Deion Dawkins because Will McDonald, they're going to try to take advantage of Spencer Brown because he's been very underwhelming last 2 or 3 weeks, even like in the blowout win of the Jaguars. He was kind of up and down the whole game, but especially the last 2 weeks specifically. They're going to line up Will McDonald on the right defensive end and just let him go to work against Spencer Brown. You would think Spencer Brown would be able to bounce back and take advantage of that, but this offensive line has been, outside of Deion Dawkins, have been very underwhelming. Like, Quinnen Williams is probably going to like body Osiris Torrance. Will McDonald and Spencer Brown will be a fun battle, but unfortunately, I don't know how much Spencer Brown will kind of, bounce back from his poor performance the last 2 weeks specifically. And then their other defensive tackle spot is Javon Kinlaw, Lecky Fotu, Solomon Thomas is kind of a tweener between edge and the defensive interior, and none of them are really specifically good other than Quinnen Williams in there and Will McDonald. So Deion Dawkins is going to be blocking Josh Allen's blind side. As long as Josh doesn't hold on the ball forever, and as long as Joe Brady implements those hot routes into the game plan, those hot routes that I described in the beginning earlier in this episode, then they'll be just fine. So I think protecting Josh's blind side will be a key for this game. So I'm going to go with Deion Dawkins as my offensive player of the game prediction. I know it's boring, like an offensive lineman. You want me to pick some flashy receiver or some flashy tight end, but like they've all been disappointing. So I don't have much confidence there. And then defensive player of the game, this was like not even a question for me. This player needs to step up. Like Greg Rousseau, he needs to have multiple pressures in this game, multiple sacks, multiple QB hits. Because without Von Miller, like he is the guy. And unfortunately, I don't know if he has the feeling to be the guy that he's shown to this point. He's very good, but I want him like finish. He had, like I said, he had 3 QB hits last week against CJ Stroud when we were playing the Texans last week. But like finish. QB pressures are great. People act like they're the end all be all, but like to me, sacks are way more important than just pressures. You can pressure the quarterback all you want, but if you don't get him to the ground, then that will affect the outcome mightily. So Greg Rousseau, one of my 5 game predictions is heavily tied to Greg Rousseau, but offense for the game prediction, Deion Dawkins. Defense play game prediction, Greg Rousseau. I think he will rise to the moment and like necessity. Like, he needs to rise to the moment. 5-game predictions. So I obviously underdog fantasy player props. So let's see. Josh Allen, give me Josh Allen over 36.5 rushing yards. Like, to me, a huge key to this game, like I said earlier, is utilizing Josh Allen's legs. And I don't mean scrambles. I mean like actual QB design runs. I'm looking for Josh Allen to have like 8 to 10 rushing attempts this game. I know that seems high, but it's kind of a necessity in my opinion. 8 to 10 rushing attempts this game and like 75 to 80 rushing yards this game. So I think he'll smash over 36.5 rushing yards personally. So put me down for that as one of my props. Dalton Kincaid over 0.5 touchdowns. Like, besides Khalil Shakir, who is the red zone threat behind this team? Like, you can say James Cook, but I'll be shocked if he plays. You can say Ty Johnson, Ray Davis, and maybe Frank Gore Jr. / Darrington Evans. Probably more Gore Jr. since he's healthier. Getting elevated from the practice squad, but like, how much are all three of those guys going to actually play? And then Josh Allen at the goal line. You don't want to risk his body, blah, blah, blah. Matt Collins, like in MVS, in theory, they're good red zone targets, but like Matt Collins can't catch the ball when he's targeted anyway. Terrible ball tracking downfield in the air. And like MVS, I'm not a fan like at all. Dawson Knox, clearly they don't play him enough. Dalton Kincaid, like he needs to bounce back in a huge way in this game. So I'm not only going to pick Dalton Kincaid over 0.5 touchdowns, like so at least one receiving touchdown for Dalton Kincaid in the end zone. I'm not only picking because I think it will happen, but like if it doesn't happen, it's a huge disappointment. Like I think Dalton Kincaid to unlock this offense needs to be way more involved. I think some of it is Joe Brady, but some of it is also I've been here in the last 2 days, and I agree with this sentiment and point that he is supposed to be this number one wide receiver, number one great player. People say, look at the Chiefs. They lost Rashee Rice. They lost Hollywood Brown. They have a rookie in Xavier Worthy. They lost Isaiah Pacheco. And the number one wide receiver for eternity, basically, has been Travis Kelce. Well, that's Travis Kelce. That's a different breed. But Travis Kelce finds ways to get open. He's draped all over him, 2 or 3 guys. He still finds soft spots in the zone defense and gets open. I'm looking for Dalton Kincaid to do that. Like, if you want to be considered that true number one option, especially without Khalil Shakir, like, you need to find ways to get open. I don't care if you're double teamed. I don't care if you're triple teamed. Find ways to make it work. If you want to be considered a great to elite player in this league, find ways, to make it work. So Dalton Kincaid not only, I think, will have 0.5, at least one touchdown, but he needs kind of like the Greg Rousseau necessity thing. 2 ones for the Jets, 2 props for the Jets. I got Aaron Rodgers over 0.5 interceptions, whether they're trailing or leading. I think Aaron Rodgers will try to push the envelope if you will, and I think he'll throw kind of an interception, either one of Rasul Douglas and Christian Benford. I just think at his age, he tries to force things a little too much. He really tried to force things a lot. He had 3 total interceptions against the Vikings. I was looking every single second snap of that game, and he was pretty atrocious and bad. So I think he will force the envelope a couple times, and I think the Bills get at least 1 interception, if not 2. But for the purposes of this prop, Aaron Rodgers at least 1 interception against the Bills defense. And then Breece Hall, I said don't let this be the game Breece Hall bounces back, but unfortunately I think it will be the game Breece Hall bounces back. I think give me Breece Hall smashing over 51.5 rushing yards for him personally. I think this is a game where Breece Hall has 90 to 100 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. I just think Breece Hall is going to gash us on the ground. I mean, leave it to the Bills for him to have a big bounce back game. And then my 5th and final game prediction specifically is always a more generalized statement for the offense or defense. But Greg Rousseau, put me down for Greg Rousseau having at least 2 sacks. I said it. I think this will happen, but it also needs to happen. QB pressures are great. QB hits are great. I've said this many times because it's it needs to be point that needs to be hammered home. Don't let these guys be slippery like CJ Stroud was last week. Aaron Rodgers isn't fooling anybody. He's not getting so the minute you hit him, he'll go down. He's not escaping pressure at all, like CJ Stroud and all these way younger quarterbacks. So the minute you hit him, he's falling down. So just keep that in mind. So put me down for Greg Rousseau, at least 2 sacks, if not more. And then my final prediction, and this is going to be a slow, ugly game. I don't know how much we can bounce back, but I have the Bills winning 20-17. I'm going to say this right now. I have been saying this basically all week. since the second the Texan game ended. If we lose to a team that just fired their head coach, that has a 40-year-old quarterback that can't move to save his life, and everything looks difficult for him right now, and to a team that their star pass rusher is holding out in the form of Hassan Reddick, that's bad. Like, if we lose to this circus, you can't come back from that. And I don't want to have to say this pains me to say this, but like, we're going to have the Sean McDermott conversation right after the season ends. Let him finish the season. But like, if we go to 3-3 and somehow lose to the circus of the New Jersey circus over there with the Jets, I don't know how you come back from that. But for now, I have the Bills winning 20-17. It's going to be a slogfest, if you will, in my opinion. Projecting the 5 inactive players, obviously 53 players in the roster. Like, we go over this every single week. 48 healthy players, and you have to have 5 healthy scratches, or they can be injured, but 5 inactive players. And unfortunately, we know of 3 of them. Running back James Cook, I don't think there's any way he plays. Defensive tackle Ed Oliver, I don't think there's any way he plays. And then wide receiver Khalil Shakir. I'll be like, with Cook and Oliver, I'll be shocked if they play. With Khalil Shakir, I won't be shocked if he plays, because I think he has a better chance to play than the other 2. I just don't know how much better. So I'll be surprised if Shakir plays still, though. So if he doesn't play, like, oh man, we're in for another slogfest. But the 2 true healthy scratches, I think superstar slot corner Taron Johnson will finally be back after missing the last 4 games. So I think center Will Clapp, they've shown they have trust in the rookie third center Cedric Van Pran Granger, and then linebacker Eddie Ulofoshio. They clearly trust in like Buffalo Joe Andreessen's special teams ability a bit more than Eddie Ulofoshio. So those are my 5 inactives. You have the injured players, Oliver. Just to recap, the injured players, Oliver, Shakir, Cook, and then unfortunately, and then the 2 true healthy scratches, linebacker Eddie Ulofoshio and center Will Clapp. Anyways, guys, that is our preview episode for today. Just a reminder, I have the Buffalo Bills beating the New York Jets 20-17. Absolute slow slogfest. I don't know. It's kind of going to be a boring game in my opinion, but it is what it is. I still have the Bills beating the Jets 20-17. A few things before I get out of here quick for today. For you guys, you can follow me personally on Twitter at AWagner13. You can follow the show on Twitter at Around Slice, and you can watch or listen to this podcast on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can support me on Substack. If you don't know what Substack is, it's a way for creators such as myself to provide their consumers and audience members such as you guys written content, so content in written form to flesh out my thoughts even more. It's totally free to join. So go do that if you so like, totally free. And then you can support my Patreon just for $3 a month if you want to support this podcast, or bonus content just for you guys as patrons, as you're referred to, just $3 a month as patreon.com/runtheslice. And last thing, I promise, I want to get to 50 subscribers on this channel. I'm not putting a deadline in it. I know you guys can do it though, so let's get to the big 5-0. So anyways, guys, I really appreciate you for supporting. Again, I have the Bills beating the Jets 20-17 in a slogfest, pretty boring, slow game. I will see you I will see you Tuesday, October 15th, so 4 days from the time of this recording. Hopefully we're not as miserable as we've been the last 2 weeks. And I'll see you then. Thank you for supporting as always. Bye.